The transport ship descended toward New Eden with a grinding sound that made everyone on the landing platform uncomfortable. Princess Lyra of the Velthari Empire stood at the edge of the viewing window, her crystalline skin catching the sunlight in sharp angles. Her four eyes looked down at the human colony below with clear disgust. Dirt. Simple buildings. No towers reaching toward the sky. No shields visible. Nothing that showed any sign of true civilization. She turned to her attendant, a nervous Velthari named Kess. "This is what they call a city?" Her voice was smooth but carried an edge that could cut through steel. "My training chambers on the home world are larger than this entire settlement." Kess bowed, careful not to meet her gaze directly. "The humans requested a simple location, Your Highness. They said it would help you understand their culture better." Lyra made a sound that came from deep in her chest, something between a laugh and a growl. "Understand them? I understand them perfectly. They are primitive. They are weak. And now the Council forces me to waste my time learning their primitive ways so they don't feel insulted." The diplomatic crisis that brought her here had been annoying and unnecessary. A Velthari trade vessel had refused to dock at a human station. Nothing dramatic. Just standard procedure for a superior species. But the humans had complained. They had actually complained to the Galactic Council. And because the Velthari were trying to establish better relations with other species, the Emperor had decided that his daughter would participate in a cultural exchange. 100 days of learning human methods. It was punishment disguised as honor. The landing was smooth. Lyra walked down the ramp first, her body moving with perfect military precision. She was tall even by Velthari standards, and she carried herself like someone who had never questioned their place at the top of any hierarchy. Behind her came Kess and 6 soldiers in full ceremonial armor. The human who stood waiting for her was nothing like she expected. Dock Captain Marcus Hayes was old for a human. His face was lined with wrinkles that showed age. His hair was gray. His uniform was functional and worn, not ceremonial. He did not bow. He did not show any of the fear or nervousness that humans typically displayed around the Velthari. He simply looked at her with eyes that held no respect, no fear, and no interest in her status. "Welcome to New Eden," he said. His voice was steady and calm. "I'm Captain Hayes. I'll be your training instructor for the next 100 days." Lyra expected to be greeted with proper protocol. She expected someone to acknowledge her rank, her bloodline, her importance. Instead, this old human spoke to her like she was just another recruit. "You understand who I am?" she asked coldly. "I do," Marcus replied. "You're a Velthari who's never done a day of hard work in her life. You've never faced a real enemy. And you've probably never been told no by anyone who mattered. That changes today." Her 4 eyes narrowed to slits. Heat rose in her crystalline skin. "I could have you removed from this position. I could have you dismissed, imprisoned, or worse. You could try," Marcus said. He turned and walked toward the training facility. "But you won't. Because you need this. Because your council needs this. And because somewhere deep down, you know that you don't actually understand humans at all. That's why you're here." Lyra followed him, her soldiers trailing behind in confused silence. No one had ever spoken to her this way. No one had ever challenged her so directly and simply walked away. The training facility was large, but nothing special. Open ground. Obstacle courses made from simple materials. A building with multiple rooms for indoor exercises. Training dummies. Weapons racks. Nothing technological. Everything seemed designed for the basic, simple movements of lesser beings. Marcus showed her to a small room with a bed, a desk, and a small window. "This is where you'll sleep," he said. "Training starts before sunrise. Bring nothing but your uniform. Leave the royal attitude outside. Where is the luxury area? Lyra asked. Where are the enhanced accommodations appropriate for someone of my rank? You get the same room as everyone else, Marcus said. Same food. Same schedule. Same rules. That's how this works. Lyra felt her anger rising like a physical force. You will regret your tone, old human. Marcus looked at her with tired eyes that had seen things she probably couldn't imagine. No, I won't. Because I don't care about your rank. I care about what you're capable of. And right now, you're capable of very little. My job is to change that. He left her there. That night, Lyra did not sleep. She lay on the hard bed in the simple room and stared at the ceiling. Everything felt wrong. The gravity was slightly different from her home world. The air had a different smell. The sounds were strange. And that old human had shown her no respect, no fear, and no recognition of her status. She could have called for the warship. She could have demanded to be taken back home. But something stopped her. Some part of her that was curious despite her anger. Some part of her that wanted to prove to this human that she was superior in every way possible. She fell asleep near dawn with clenched fists. The alarm sounded an hour after sunrise. Lyra jumped to her feet and rushed outside, expecting some kind of emergency or attack. Instead, she found Captain Marcus standing with a group of human soldiers in exercise clothes. We run 5 kilometers, he said. We do it every morning. You start today. Lyra looked at the distance. 5 kilometers was nothing. She could cover that in minutes using her superior strength and speed. She began to run, easily passing the humans, heading toward the finish line with absolute confidence. She did not expect the ground to be uneven. She did not expect her advanced reflexes to be less useful when she was tired. She did not expect that running in Earth's gravity, breathing Earth's air, with her body still adjusting to the planet, would affect her performance so dramatically that she finished first, but barely. And she was breathing hard. Marcus handed her water. Tomorrow you'll run farther. I could have gone faster, Lyra said. My strength was not fully engaged. No, Marcus said. You ran as fast as you could. You just discovered something important. You're not on your home world anymore. Your advantages don't mean as much here. That's lesson 1. Lyra wanted to argue. She wanted to use her strength to prove him wrong. But something in the way he spoke made her pause. The first day of training had just begun, and she had already learned that the old human was far more dangerous than she had first thought. Not because of weapons or physical strength, because he knew things about her that she did not know, about herself, and he had no intention of being polite about teaching her. 30 days had passed since Princess Lyra arrived on New Eden. Her muscles ached in ways she did not know were possible. Her pride ached worse. The daily routine never changed. Running before sunrise, tactical exercises in the morning, combat training in the afternoon, survival scenarios in the evening. And through it all, Captain Marcus remained calm, pushing her harder with each passing day, never once acknowledging that she was improving. Lyra had learned many things in these 30 days. She learned that superior strength meant nothing when opponents moved in ways she could not predict. She learned that her advanced combat training, designed for fighting against species she had already studied, fell apart when facing human techniques she had never encountered. She learned that humans could endure pain longer than she thought possible. And she learned that no matter how hard she tried, she could not break Captain Marcus with words or threats. On day 15, Lyra had tried to use her authority to dismiss him. She had demanded new training, demanded luxury accommodations, demanded to speak to someone in higher authority. Marcus had simply looked at her and said, "No, now drop and do 50 push-ups." She had done them, because refusing meant she would fail. and failure was becoming unacceptable to her. On day 20, a small human soldier named Sarah had saved her during a combat scenario. Lyra had been trapped in a simulated building collapse, and her strength alone could not clear the heavy beams blocking the exit. Sarah had approached her and shown her how to use angles and leverage instead of raw power, how to move the beam through technique rather than force. In 5 minutes, they were free. After that, Lyra started asking questions. Real questions. Not challenges meant to show superiority, but genuine inquiries about how human minds work differently from Volthari minds. Sarah seemed surprised at first, but she began to explain things. Simple things. Like why humans preferred to work together rather than compete. Like why they formed strong bonds with each other. Like why the soldiers who trained beside her were willing to risk their lives for each other. We are not programmed for loyalty the way your kind seems to be. Sarah explained one evening as they sat on the edge of the training grounds. We choose it. Every day, we choose to protect each other. That makes it mean more. Lyra had never considered choice in that way. Her people were bred for roles. They were designed for purposes. But humans seemed to make their purposes for themselves. Day 25 brought a test unlike any before it. Marcus gathered the soldiers and Lyra in a large warehouse. He explained the scenario briefly. A transport vessel had crashed in the mountains. Survivors were stranded in extreme cold. They had limited supplies. Rescue was possible, but they had to plan the mission carefully. And they had to do it working together. He divided them into teams. Lyra found herself paired with Sarah and 2 other human soldiers named Kevin and Diana. Marcus was not assigning her the leadership position she expected. He was making her work as part of the team, not above it. Kevin was skeptical of taking orders from anyone, especially an alien. Diana was all business, focused only on the mission. Sarah was calm and thoughtful, asking questions and considering different approaches. They argued about the best route to take. They debated about what supplies to bring. They disagreed about how to move through dangerous terrain, and nobody cared about Lyra's rank. They did listen to her ideas. When she suggested a faster route, Kevin questioned it. When she said they should pack more heavy equipment, Diana pointed out they couldn't carry it. When she insisted on going alone to scout the terrain, Sarah simply shook her head. We work as a unit, Sarah said. One person alone is weak. Together, we're strong. Lyra wanted to argue that she was stronger than all of them combined. But something in Sarah's eyes made her stop. There was truth in what she said, but not the truth Lyra understood. It was a different kind of truth. A kind that required vulnerability instead of strength. The mission succeeded. The simulated survivors were rescued. But not because Lyra was the strongest or the most advanced. Because the 4 of them worked as a unit, each person's skills filling gaps the others could not fill. Marcus reviewed the mission afterward. He pointed out that Lyra had tried to take charge 4 times. Every time, it had almost caused a problem. Every time, Sarah had redirected her back to working with the team instead of commanding it. You have to learn, Marcus said. That leading is not the same as being in charge. Lyra wanted to understand this. She genuinely wanted to understand. Explain, she said. Leadership means making sure your people succeed, Marcus continued. It means serving them, not ruling them. It means being willing to follow someone else's idea if it's better. That's human leadership. That's what makes humans dangerous to empires like yours. We have leaders who serve, Lyra protested. The Emperor serves the Volthari people, does he? Marcus asked. Or do your people serve him? Lyra had no answer. That night, she sat alone in her room and thought about everything that had happened. For the first time since arriving on New Eden, she did not feel superior. She felt confused. She felt ignorant. She felt like she was missing something fundamental about the way the universe actually worked. On day 28, Marcus gave her a new assignment. She would spend the next 2 days with the civilian medical team on the colony. She would work with them, help them, learn what they did. No combat training. No tactical exercises. Just learning what humans valued when they were not preparing for war. The medical facility was small but efficient. Doctors and nurses worked constantly, treating injuries, managing illness, caring for the elderly. Lyra watched as they spent hours with patients who could not pay them. She watched as they fought to save someone who would never contribute to society again. She watched as they treated a human child with the same intensity and care they gave to a military commander. One elderly human woman asked Lyra why she was there. Lyra explained the training program. The old woman smiled. "Ah," she said. "So they're teaching you what matters. Not power. Not conquest. Not dominance." She reached out with a shaky hand and touched Lyra's crystalline skin. "They're teaching you that life matters. That suffering matters. That protecting others matters more than any empire." Lyra did not move away. At the end of day 30, Marcus asked her a simple question. "Are you starting to understand?" Lyra considered lying. She considered defending her pride. Instead, she said, "I am beginning to understand that I have understood very little." Marcus nodded. "That's the breakthrough. That's when real learning starts." She was still the strongest being in the colony. She was still of royal blood. She was still superior in countless ways. But for the first time in her life, Lyra understood that strength alone meant nothing. And that realization shook something deep inside her. The combat exercise began like all the others. A simulated crisis. A team of soldiers. A dangerous scenario to survive. But this time, something different happened. During the exercise, one of the soldiers was trapped under a collapsed structure. The situation was designed to be unsolvable without sacrifice. Someone would have to stay behind to hold the structure up while the others escaped. Someone would have to give their life to save the group. Kevin, the skeptical soldier Lyra had trained with before, looked at the situation. He looked at the other soldiers. He looked at the civilians they were supposed to protect in the scenario. Then he walked under the structure and held it up on his shoulders. "Go," he said. "All of you, now." Sarah grabbed his arm. "Kevin, no. There has to be another way." "There is no other way," Kevin said. His voice was steady. Not afraid. Not dramatic. Just factual. "I can hold this for 3 minutes. That's enough for you to get everyone out. After that, I'll use the back exit. I know the timing. I've trained for this." But they all knew. Everyone in the colony had trained for scenarios like this. Kevin would not make it out. The structure would fail. He would die. Sarah stepped out from under the structure. The other soldiers moved. The civilians they were protecting started moving toward the exit. But Sarah stood frozen, staring at Kevin. "I love you," she said. Kevin smiled. "I know. Go. Save them." Sarah ran. The soldiers ran. The civilians ran. They all escaped with 30 seconds to spare. Behind them, the structure collapsed exactly as Kevin had calculated. He did not emerge from the rubble. The exercise ended. Marcus turned off the simulation. Everyone emerged from the scenario area. Kevin walked out of the building laughing, completely unharmed, as he always did after a simulated death. The scenario was designed exactly the way it seemed. To teach them about sacrifice. To force them to face the reality of what humans were willing to do for each other. But Lyra could not move. Sarah was crying. Real tears from real eyes. Not tears of relief that Kevin was alive, but tears of grief for the choice he had made. Tears for the sacrifice he had been willing to give. Lyra went to find Marcus. Why? She demanded. Why would he do that? He is not bonded to these people through genetics or hierarchy. He is not required to sacrifice himself. No, Marcus agreed. He's not. Then why did he choose to die? It serves no logical purpose. Marcus sat down on a bench. He looked tired. Sit with me. I'm going to tell you something about humans that might change how you think about everything. Lyra sat. Humans are fragile, Marcus began. We die easily. We are not as strong as your people. We don't have advanced technology grafted into our bodies. We don't live for centuries. We live short lives. And because our lives are short, we learn to value them. And because we value life, we learn to value each other. He paused, looking out at the colony beyond the training grounds. Kevin made a choice, Marcus continued. He chose to die so others could live. Not because he was forced to. Not because it was his duty. But because he cared about those people. Because their lives mattered more to him than his own life. Humans do that. We see someone suffering, and something inside us says, I will take their burden. I will sacrifice for them. It's not logic. It's love. Love. Lyra repeated the word like she was tasting it for the first time. I have been taught that love is a weakness. An emotional response that clouds judgment. Is it? Marcus asked. Kevin's choice saved everyone. That seems pretty clear judgment to me. Over the next few days, Marcus changed her training. Instead of combat exercises, he took her into the civilian areas of the colony. He showed her the orphanage where human children who had lost their parents were being raised by adults who had no genetic connection to them. The adults worked every day caring for children who were not their own, feeding them, teaching them, protecting them. He took her to the medical facility where a doctor spent 6 hours trying to save a patient who everyone knew would not survive. The doctor stayed with her because, as he explained, no one should die alone. He took her to the burial grounds where humans gathered to honor those who had died. They sang songs. They told stories. They cried openly. And everyone understood that this was necessary. That grief was the price of love. That remembering the dead honored their lives. Lyra began to understand something that no amount of tactical training could have taught her. Humans were not weak because they could feel pain. They were strong because they felt it and kept going anyway. They were not illogical because they cared for each other. They were brilliant because that care made them capable of incredible things. On day 50, there was a major crisis in a nearby colony. A disease had broken out. The medical team was overwhelmed. Marcus asked for volunteers to help. Lyra volunteered immediately. They took a transport to the colony. The situation was worse than she had expected. Humans of all ages were sick. Children were suffering. The medical staff was exhausted. Supplies were running low. Lyra worked for 18 hours without stopping. She carried supplies. She helped move patients. She held the hand of a dying child because the child was afraid and needed comfort. The child called her a monster at first because she looked so different. But Lyra did not leave. She stayed until the child fell asleep. Thought by the end of the first day, Lyra understood that her strength meant nothing here. Her royal bloodline meant nothing. Her advanced training meant nothing. What mattered was that she was willing to work, that she was willing to help, that she cared whether these people lived or died. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, recovered because Lyra stayed with her through the worst of the fever, kept her cool, gave her water, and refused to let her give up even when she wanted to. When the crisis ended 3 days later, the girl hugged Lyra and said, "Thank you for saving me." Lyra held her and realized something had changed inside her. She was not the same being who had arrived on New Eden 50 days ago. Marcus waited for her when she returned. He did not say anything. He did not need to. He simply looked at her with recognition, like she had finally started to understand something true. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. "Now you keep learning," Marcus said, "because the most important lessons are just beginning." Lyra nodded. She was ready. For the first time in her life, she was truly ready to learn what it meant to be more than powerful. It meant being brave enough to care. The message came on day 75. Kess, Lyra's attendant, arrived with urgent news from the Velthari Empire. The communication was brief and official. A rogue military faction had attacked a neutral colony at the edge of Velthar space. The attack was devastating. Thousands were dead. The council wanted Lyra to return home immediately to address the incident. Marcus watched as Lyra read the message. Her face remained calm, but he could see the shock in her eyes. The blood in her crystalline skin shifted color, something that happened when Velthari were stressed. "What happened?" Marcus asked. "A colony was attacked," Lyra said. "They want me to return. They will expect me to support military retaliation, to demand the destruction of those responsible. What do you want to do?" Lyra looked at him. "I don't know. I need more information." Marcus helped her access the colony records. What they found was disturbing. The colony that was attacked had been harboring human refugees. Refugees from a Velthari mining operation where conditions were lethal. Humans were being worked to death. Those who could escape had fled to this neutral colony. The rogue faction that attacked had called themselves the Velthari Preservation Society. They believed that allowing humans to escape was a betrayal of Velthari strength. They had attacked to punish the colony for granting asylum to human refugees. Thousands of humans had died in the attack, along with hundreds of other species who lived on that colony. Lyra felt something break inside her. She had spent the last 75 days learning to care for people. She had held dying humans in her arms. She had mourned with them. She had fought to save them. And now, her own people had slaughtered thousands of them for the crime of giving them sanctuary. She called her father, the Emperor. The communication took 3 hours to establish through the cosmic relay system. When his face appeared, he looked disappointed in her. "You will return immediately," he said. "You will address the council. You will support the necessary response." "What response are you planning?" Lyra asked. "Military occupation of the neutral sector," her father replied. "Complete seizure of the colony's assets, and the execution of the officials who allowed humans to remain there." Lyra felt her anger rising. "Father, the humans were refugees. They were fleeing death." "They are vermin," her father said coldly. "They are useful for labor, nothing more. They have no place on a neutral colony. The officials who protected them made a choice against our interests. They made a choice to be merciful," Lyra said. "They chose to save lives. That is not a crime." Her father's expression hardened. "Your training has made you weak, daughter. You will return. You will regain your strength, and you will support your people." He ended the communication. Lyra sat alone in the communication room and felt the weight of an impossible choice crushing down on her. Sarah found her there an hour later. She did not ask questions. She simply sat beside her. "What happened?" Sarah asked. Lyra told her. Sarah listened without interrupting. When the story was finished, she was quiet for a long time. "What will you do?" Sarah finally asked. "I don't know," Lyra said. "My father expects me to return. My people expect me to defend them. But the humans in that colony were innocent, and my people murdered them." "Yes," Sarah said. "They did. How can I choose between my people and what is right?" Lyra's voice broke. Sarah reached out and took her hand. "You choose what is right, because being human, being part of any civilization that matters, means choosing what is right even when it costs you everything. Marcus came to her that evening. He brought evidence of what had happened in the mining operation. Videos of human workers being pushed until they collapsed. Records of deaths. Documentation of the profits the Velthari Empire made from their suffering. Your people chose this, Marcus said simply. They chose profit over lives. The humans on that colony chose to save those lives. Your people murdered those humans for that choice. I know, Lyra whispered. What will you do? I have to go back, Lyra said. I have to face this. I cannot hide here and pretend it did not happen. On day 78, Lyra boarded a transport to the Velthari home world. The flight took 2 days. During that time, she composed a message. Not to her father. To her people Dot, she spoke about what she had learned on New Eden. She spoke about human strength and human courage. She spoke about the choice to be merciful, even when you have power over your enemies. She spoke about Kevin, about Sarah, about the child she had saved during the medical crisis. She spoke about the mining operation. She gave specific names, specific dates, specific numbers. She showed the evidence of exploitation and death, and she made a statement. I will not support military retaliation. I will not defend the actions of those who murdered innocent beings. I will not be silent about the crimes of my own people. If you call me traitor for this, I accept that name. But I will not compromise. The message was broadcast across the Empire before she even landed. The response was immediate and dramatic. The Council demanded her return for questioning. Some military factions called for her arrest for treason, but others supported her. Military officers who had seen the evidence. Council members who had been uncomfortable with the mining operation. Younger Velthari who had grown up seeing humans as more than simple labor. When Lyra landed at the royal palace, she was not arrested. Instead, she was surrounded by supporters and enemies both. The Empire was fracturing, not into war, but into genuine argument about what the Velthari should be. Her father met her in the throne room. You have shamed our family, he said. No, Lyra replied. I have honored it. I have chosen to do what is right instead of what is convenient. That is true honor. You will be exiled, her father said. Then I accept exile, Lyra said. Because some things matter more than empire. Some things matter more than family. Some things matter more than power. Humans taught me that. And I will spend the rest of my life proving them right. She left the palace that day. But she did not leave alone. Hundreds of Velthari followed her. Military officers, council members, citizens who believed in what she was saying. Together, they began something new. Not a rebellion, but a movement. A movement for a different kind of Velthari civilization. One based on cooperation instead of domination. One based on protecting life instead of exploiting it. Day 78 changed everything. The galaxy would never be quite the same again. The warship appeared in orbit above New Eden on day 97. It was a military vessel. A statement. A threat. A message that the Velthari Empire was not pleased with what Lyra was doing. The colony went into alert status. Defensive shields came online. Military personnel moved to battle stations. Everyone prepared for conflict. But Lyra was not afraid. She stood on the observation platform and looked up at the warship. Inside her mind, she was calculating, analyzing, understanding. She could feel Marcus standing beside her without looking. They will demand your return, Marcus said. I know, Lyra replied. They might attack if you refuse. I know that too. We can defend ourselves, Marcus continued. The humans here are ready to fight. We have weapons. We have trained soldiers. We could hold them off long enough for evacuation. Lyra shook her head. No, that is not the answer. That is thinking like they do. War because someone disagrees. Violence because words failed. That is not what I learned here. She opened the communication channel to the warship. The commander appeared on the screen. He was Velthari, high-ranking, and his expression was hardened with anger. "Return to the Empire immediately," he commanded. "You are ordered to come aboard this vessel." "No," Lyra said simply. The commander's skin shifted color with rage. "You refuse a direct order from military command?" "I do, because I refuse to be part of a system that exploits and murders innocent beings. I refuse to be part of an empire that measures its strength by how many weaker species it can dominate. I refuse to live that way anymore." "You are a traitor," the commander said. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I am the first true Velthari to understand what strength really means." Lyra leaned forward. "But I am not going to fight you. I am going to show you something instead. I am going to show you that humans are not the weak, disposable species you have always believed them to be. I am going to prove that cooperation is stronger than conquest." She cut the transmission and turned to Marcus. "Gather everyone. I want the entire colony assembled. I want them to see this." Within an hour, 500 humans stood in the central plaza of New Eden. Soldiers and civilians both. Children and elderly. Everyone gathered to look up at the warship in the sky. Lyra stood before them. Her crystalline skin caught the sunlight. Her 4 eyes looked at each face. Then she addressed not the warship, but the humans in front of her. 100 days ago, I arrived on your colony believing you were primitive, weak, unworthy of respect. I was wrong, and I want to tell you why." She began to speak. Her voice was steady and powerful, and it carried through the communication system to the warship above, to all the other stations nearby, to anyone listening across the sector dot. She spoke about Kevin, who chose to die so others could live. She spoke about Sarah and her compassion. She spoke about the doctors who spent hours trying to save lives that would never produce profit. She spoke about the child she had held, while fever burned through their body. She spoke about humans choosing mercy when they had power, choosing cooperation when they could have dominated, choosing to protect even those they didn't know, even those who couldn't pay them, even those who couldn't help them in return. For millions of years, the Velthari have measured strength by military power and technological advancement, Lyra said. But you are measuring strength wrong. True strength is the choice to be merciful when you have power. True strength is protecting those weaker than you. True strength is caring for others, even when it costs you. She turned to look at the warship directly. And humans have these strengths in abundance. Your empire fears humans not because we lack in technology, but because we understand something you have forgotten. We understand that civilization means more than dominance. We understand that a species that destroys its vulnerable members is not strong. It is sick. The communication channel from the warship opened. The commander was gone. Instead, another Velthari appeared, younger, with eyes that held something different from the hardened military stance. "Princess Lyra, this is Captain Devon. I am the second officer of this vessel. Many of us agree with you. We are tired of the way our empire operates. But we cannot simply refuse orders. We have been trained to obey." "Then come down," Lyra said. "Leave the service. Join us. Help build something different." There was silence. Then the captain said, "We will require time to think." "You have as long as you need," Lyra said. "But know this. We will not fight you. We will not use weapons. We will only show you that there is a better way." The warship moved away from New Eden. It did not attack. It simply waited, maintaining orbit at a distance. Over the next 3 days, things changed rapidly. The movement that had started with Lyra's broadcast grew. Military vessels throughout Velthari space began questioning their orders. More and more Velthari began recognizing that what Lyra was saying was true. On day 100, the 100-day training period was officially complete. Marcus found Lyra standing where it had all begun, at the edge of the colony where she first landed. She was different now, not in how she looked, but in everything else. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now I stay, Lyra said. The council has formally exiled me from the Empire. My father calls me traitor. But millions of Velthari are listening. Millions are wondering if there is a better way. And there is, Marcus said. Yes, because humans have already found it. Or at least, you are looking for it every day. You try to be better. You make mistakes. But you keep trying. That is what the universe needs more of. Over the next weeks, the first human Velthari Joint Academy was established on New Eden. It trained both species together in cooperation, compassion, and the principles of a civilization built on protecting life instead of dominating it. Lyra and Marcus worked side by side, teaching, learning, building something that had never existed before. Within a year, 11 Velthari colonies had joined the movement. Within 5 years, it had spread across a third of Velthari space. The old emperor passed power to a new generation of leaders who believed in cooperation instead of conquest. The galaxy changed not overnight, not easily, but it changed because a princess trained with a human for 100 days and learned that real strength was not power. Real strength was the courage to care. On the anniversary of her arrival, Lyra stood in the academy graduation ceremony and watched the first group of mixed human and Velthari students complete their training. They had learned together, trained together, become something new together. Sarah stood beside her. They had become genuine friends. The distance between their species had not mattered because they had found something more important: connection, understanding, purpose. Do you think it will last? Sarah asked. Lyra looked at the students. Humans and Velthari standing together, laughing together, supporting each other. Yes, Lyra said, because now there are thousands of us who know what strength really means. And we will teach that to everyone who comes after. Marcus approached them and smiled. The old trainer who had changed the galaxy by teaching a princess that weakness and strength were not what she had always believed them to be. Come on, he said. There is more training to be done. There is always more strength to build. Lyra followed him, and the 100 days of training that changed the galaxy became the foundation for a new era. An era where power served compassion instead of the other way around. An era where all species learned that the greatest strength was not in the weapons you carried, but in the lives you saved and the connections you made.